What is going on, everybody? AHS Rules back again with another video, and I'm already going to put out this disclaimer that I'm going to have a lot of controversial views in this video. Now, I just want to be known that these are my opinions. Now, when I do fantasy booking cards, it's what I would like to see. It's in the title of it. What I would like to see. Now, occasionally, in a couple of my fantasy booking videos, a lot of my viewers have agreed, and I thank you for that. But I think that a lot of my fantasy booking decisions on this card are going to be nuts and highly questionable. But don't worry, I have reasons for everything. I'm not just going to say something and not have a reason for it. So, that being said, I am doing a fantasy booking of the co-promoted between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door 2023, or as I like to call it, Forbidden Door number 2. I have the Raptors shirt on purpose because it's going to be in the 6th. Shout out ACM TTLV, who will most likely be there. And I have my LIJ at. Got to go find it. It was in my closet. Have not worn it in a minute. And I just got to put, again, another little disclaimer. I am not the biggest New Japan fan. Most of my New Japan watching comes via the weekly Access TV show, which is very good, but obviously they don't show every single New Japan thing out there. I will try to make it a point to watch Dominion, because it's happening this weekend, and some of my booking decisions might have changed, most likely not. But long story short, this is going to be a very crazy card, but like I said, if I have a reason for a match being booked, I will further explain it. And last disclaimer. So I wrote these 2 side notes. One is a disclaimer, one is it. So, A is a little fun fact. Out of the 34 people booked to compete on the main card, there's 4 extras on the pre-show. I didn't count. But out of the 34 people booked on the main card for Dominion this weekend, I have 19 booked on this card. And I wanted to list some of the notable AEW names I do not have on this card. And this is probably going to be the most controversial thing I say in this video. But I don't have a single women's match booked. The main reason being, I'm still very confused by the AEW women's division. I do stand by that statement. What I meant to say is, I'm still confused by the New Japan women's division. Not every New Japan show has a women's matchup because it's just kind of being introduced and still working some things out. And with that being said, I don't really know a lot of the talent in the New Japan women's division. The AEW women's division, backing up. Very confused by it as well, but I am watching it weekly and still there's a lot of frustrations with it. So just because there's a lot of confusion with it, and probably just I'm not knowing the best, and I don't even really know what to do, I don't have any women's matches on this card. Other names missing, Adam Cole and Chris Jericho, who are most likely continuing their rivalry, even though a lot of us kind of want it to end at Double or Nothing. They're most likely continuing it, and I didn't know a way to interpret it onto this card. There's some popular acts who I don't also have on this card, the main ones being the Lucha Bros, the Acclaimed, and the Hardys. I could fit them on. And last but not least, probably a lot of people would be like, huh? But the man himself said he's most likely not going to be on this card. Now, I don't know if he was joking or not, but I do not have the AEW World Champion MJF on this card. Now, like I said, it's kind of, we don't know if he was really joking or not, but if he said that he said he was not going to be on this card during the scrum after Double or Nothing. And to be fair, he was not on last year's event. So it would add up a little bit, but he's world champion this time around. I didn't book him in a match. That being said, I have 11 matches. 1 buy-in match, 10 main card matches. Last year's show had 14 matches, so I summed it down a little bit. Also, last disclaimer, this is like my 4th disclaimer. None of these matches I have for the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, which I think they said they were starting at Forbidden Door. The main reason being, when I made my fantasy booking for Double or Nothing, I talked a lot about the Owen Hart Foundation tournament and booking it there, and it just kind of, I didn't really know who's going to be in this tournament, so I just thought that I would just leave it for in the past. So, that being said, we are 5 minutes in. Let's get to the freaking matches being booked. For the buy-in, like I said, the one buy-in match. I'm not the most proud of it, but at least it makes sense in my eyes. FTR, Ricky Starks, and representing New Japan, Bishamon, which is the tag team of Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi, versus Bullet Club Gold. Now, as of this moment, there are only 2 members in the Bullet Club Gold, Jay White and Juice Robinson, which, since Jay White has been in AEW, he's been feuding with Ricky Starks, along with Juice Robinson. So, obviously there's a connection. They obviously have introduced Bullet Club Gold, and I imagine more members will be added. So, as of right now, this would be a 5-on-2 match. I think the perfect way to introduce these new members would be at this event. That being said, though, I don't know who the hell they would be. I would highly suggest that one of them be Kenta, because I'd like to see him in AEW more. But I don't really like FTR being connected with Ricky Starks. I just because it kind of happened out of nowhere. They teased it at Double or Nothing, and I think it makes sense to have it here. Also, I could have done it as a 6-man, but I wanted to get Bishamon because I do like Hiroki Goto. I wanted to get him on the card, so that's why I made it a 10-man tag, but you can definitely make it a trios. First matchup on the main card for the international title is a fatal 4-way match, which last year was a fatal 4-way match to crown the first ever international / when back then it was All Atlantic champion. The reigning defending champion who has had a great run, it would most likely continue. I don't see him dropping this championship anytime soon. But Orange Cassidy goes against 3 big names, all of which would be great singles matches, but I couldn't just choose one for this. And like I said, it kind of made sense that last year there was a Fatal 4-Way match. So this year, I booked another Fatal 4-Way match. He's going against 1 AEW talent and 2 New Japan talents. The AEW talent being Konosuke Takeshita, who just recently re-emerged at Double or Nothing and is most likely going to be a bigger deal than he already is. And a lot of people have been pushing for him to become a champion. Again, this could be a perfect event for him to become champion. But representing New Japan, Kushida, who I would be very intrigued by the Orange Cassidy-Kushida matchup. The main reason I booked this as a Fatal 4 is because, like I said, I would like if Orange Cassidy faced all 3 of these guys in singles matches, and it makes a lot of sense to book them in a Fatal 4-Way. And the last guy in this matchup is a guy that Orange Cassidy was supposed to face once. The matchup never happened, and so we would get a bit of a tease of it happening here. Orange Cassidy, Minoru Suzuki. I was going to say Orange Cassidy versus Minoru Suzuki, but Minoru Suzuki. Like I said, that one-on-one matchup was supposed to happen a couple years ago, and it didn't happen. We'd get it right here. So, the first matchup on the main card, international title match, Orange Cassidy versus Konosuke Takeshita versus Kushida versus Minoru Suzuki. Next, this could be a junior heavyweight title match, but AEW doesn't really like classifying their competitors in weight classes, but he would more than likely, if he was to go to New Japan, be in the junior heavyweight division. So, the spoiler alert is a junior heavyweight title match as the current champion, Hiromu Takahashi versus Darby Allin. 2 guys with very similar mentalities and I guess somewhat movesets going on in this dream match that if I made a video about it last year, I suggested this match in my, because spoiler alert, I have a lot of free time. And I did a fantasy booking for this show last year, which obviously I didn't make a video of because I wasn't making videos then. And I suggested this match last year, and I'm suggesting it again this year. Next matchup, it's another one that I suggested last year that now it still makes sense because it's a dream matchup, but there's a little bit of a stipulation. But I said it could be for the ROH TV title. Now, I don't know if they want to put an ROH TV title match on an AEW New Japan show, but you could. Samoa Joe versus Tomohiro Ishii. Like I said about the last matchup, if you want to put the titles on the line, it makes it more prestigious and a bigger deal, but if they didn't, I would understand. But it's just 2 men with very similar mentalities, very similar movesets, competing in a dream matchup. Next, Dun da da da. Another matchup of two guys, very similar movesets and mentalities, and another one that could be for a championship because one of the competitors is a champion for the TNT Championship. Wardlow versus Jeff Cobb. Now, this could be a double title match because Jeff Cobb is challenging for the NJPW World TV title at Dominion. And I wouldn't be surprised if he won or not. But like I said, for the third time, there's two guys, very similar moves. I guess there's probably this one compared to the other two matchups. The movesets are a bit different, but just very two similar individuals competing in a matchup that would be very interesting. And while I'm getting it out of the way, talking about guys with similar movesets, mentalities, it could possibly be title matchups. For the NJP World TV title, we were supposed to get this matchup last year. I don't know if they're going to be committed to making this matchup happen again this year. But like I said, we wanted to see it last year. Could we see it again this year? Maybe not, because one of the individuals is a different person than he was last year. But so Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson. So, next. This one is one that I would be very happy to see. For the AEW Trios Championship, the House of Black versus LIJ members Bushi, Shingo, and Tetsuya Naito. I think that all three men would mesh well together, or I guess all six men in this case. I think Shingo and Brody King would be interesting. Buddy Matthews and Bushi would be interesting, but the matchup that would be most intriguing out of the possibilities would obviously be Malachi Black versus Tetsuya Naito, which he was not on last year's card, sadly. But hopefully he is on this year's card. Another trios match that I'd have taking place is Hangman Page and the Young Bucks versus the United Empire. Now, there's a lot of members to choose from. I think the most obvious and popular choice would be Aussie Open, but Mark Davis is currently hurt, so to substitute for them, I had TJP, Francisco Akira, who, NBA-related note, looks a lot like Dante DiVincenzo, and the third partner, the ever so popular, we saw him last year a lot in AEW, Great O'Khan, and this is kind of a tease of a matchup that, spoiler alert, I'd have later on, but you most likely saw it in the thumbnail, so you kind of got spoiled a long time ago. So, I'm trying to make sure I get all these matches and I don't read any over. So, we're at the final three. This one, they're definitely teasing this direction, but because I didn't want this to be an overblown card and I wanted to limit it to 10 matchups, and I even went over it with 11, but at least the one would be on the buy-in. I can understand. This is a tag team match. I have the Dream Rare Tag Team, but they've been dreaming it or tag teaming a lot lately, and their current never overweight 6-man tag team champions, Kazuchika Okada and Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Blackpool Combat Club members Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli. I know that Moxley has been calling out Okada a lot, and I would not be surprised to see Okada and Moxley actually take place at this event. I would very much enjoy seeing Hiroshi Tanahashi and Claudio Castagnoli in a singles matchup as well. And again, it's going to be teased a lot because they got a 6-man tag team title match at Dominion this weekend. And so I imagine a lot will come out of that into this. But like I said, just to save space on the card, I booked it as a tag team match. Kazuchika Okada and Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli. But I imagine in real life it's going to be a singles match between Okada and Moxley. We're still getting what I'd like to see in the end-all, be-all. Now, I keep mentioning I have a lot of controversial opinions in this video. And I think the first one would be the no women's matchup, which, again, I apologize for, but at least I gave a reason. This is probably going to be the second most controversial opinion. Now, I was talking to people earlier, mainly ACM, T2V, and Who's Your Geo. And when you looked at last year's card, the AEW champion... Alright, let me back this up a little bit. So, when we normally see co-promoted shows, a lot of... They try to make it 50-50. That way, nobody looks weak. The only, difference, I would say, is WWE, when we've had Survivor Series over the past couple of years, and we get champions versus champions, and just people get mad because a champion of a brand... So, for example, when Roman Reigns faced Big E, a lot of people are mad because it made Big E look weak because he's a world champion and he just lost. So, this is why we very rarely, and there's probably a couple cases, very rarely, if ever, get world champions versus world champions. So, backtracking to last year, we didn't get the AEW world champion versus the IWGP heavyweight champion. Instead, we got Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. It's supposed to be a different matchup, but I'm not going to mention it. And New Japan was okay with Hiroshi Tanahashi losing. And they would have been okay with the original matchup if Hiroshi Tanahashi lost. So, I could have obviously done Sonata, who's the current IWGP heavyweight champion, versus MJF. And this is just why a lot of this card is it's very 50-50. Anybody could win these matchups. If you watch my weekly ROH TV reviews, I repeat that over and over again. I just want 50-50 matchups where I don't know where the hell is going to happen because it makes it unpredictable and more enjoyable to watch. So, now, on to this IWGP heavyweight title match. I went up and down the AEW roster because I wanted it to at least be somebody that we normally wouldn't see face Sonata in New Japan challenging for the championship. Also, Sonata might not be champion by the event. I'm going to hope and imagine that he is, because I enjoy Sonata. I've enjoyed him since he was in TNA 9-10 years ago. Besides that, I went up and down the AEW roster. And it's definitely difficult to pick somebody for Sonata to face, because, again, spoiler alert, I really doubt the champion is going to change hands. And the guy that I landed on had probably one of the biggest victories of his career, if not of his career, this past weekend at Double or Nothing. So, for the IWGP Heavyweight title, I am suggesting Sonata versus Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta picked up the pin in the Anarchy in the Arena matchup. Wheeler Yuta is very enjoyable, and people like him. And he kind of has the New Japan style, as they would say. And if you were to say he's not on the IWGP Championship level, I can understand that. But I would want you to say Sonata versus Wheeler Yuta wouldn't be a good match, because I doubt you would say that. So, I know it's crazy, but he's got a lot of momentum going for him. He just had a big victory. I don't see where it doesn't make sense. And like I said, I went up and down the AEW roster, and if they aren't already booked, which there's obviously a lot of people you could have face Sonata, I think he was kind of at the top of the list if compared to everybody else that already have booked. He is at the top of the list that you would be, yes, I could see that match actually happening. So, it's definitely crazy, and if you think I'm crazy, I'll take it as a compliment. Last but not least, the main event matchup. In the thumbnail of the video, a match that's kind of already been teased, it's been wanted and hopeful for months, and we're almost there to it getting confirmed. But for the U.S. title, Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 2. Now, technically, it would be Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 3, because they had one match in New Japan, but I'm not going to be that guy. So, Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 2. They had the first matchup happen at Wrestle Kingdom. It was a big deal. A lot of people's match of the years. It's definitely a very enjoyable matchup. And just the history that they have, the beef that they have, it will be an interesting matchup. And like I said, they've already teased that it's most likely going to happen unless Lance Archer ruins it, or if Kenny loses the title by then, which I think that is a slight possibility. But I think I think so many people want this matchup, and they named this big headline matchup. And like I said, this is most likely the main event. IWGP US Championship match, Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 2. So, recap time. The buy-in, FTR, Ricky Starks, and Bishamon versus Bullet Club Gold, Jay White and Juice Robinson mainly. Also, I needed a backtrack. I knew I was forgetting something. If I was to say, if Wheeler Yuta doesn't face Sonata, Jay White makes a lot of sense because he's a former IWGP champion. He never got his rematch, but the main reason I leaned against that is Jay White's already kind of in an established rivalry, and he left New Japan for a reason, and this just kind of would be reattaching him very quickly after he left. So that's the main reason, but definitely I'll hear about that. But I have him on the buy-in, which is, again, I don't like doing it, but I just don't like having a lot of matches on the card. International title match. Orange Cassidy versus Konosuke Takeshita versus Kushida versus Minoru Suzuki. I'm alright with Orange Cassidy facing any of these guys in a singles matchup, but I was like, screw it. We're just throw them all in the ring at the same time. It'd be very interesting. For the junior heavyweight title, it's still a dream match. Hiromu Takahashi versus Darby Allin. Same thing goes for the RH TV title. Samoa Joe versus Tomohiro Ishii. Same thing goes for the TNT title. Wardlow versus Jeff Cobb. And same thing goes for the New Japan TV or New Japan World TV title. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson. Also have the Hangman Page and the Young Bucks versus the United Empire. The United Empire members that I leaned on were TJP, Francisco Akira, looks like Dante DiVincenzo, and Great O'Khan. For the Trios title in AEW, I had House of Black versus LIJ members Bushi, Shingo Takagi, Tetsuya Naito. Dun, 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 dun. Again, I'm alright with either of these being split into singles matchups, but to save space on my card, I suggested that they do Kazuchika Okada and Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Blackpool Combat Club members Claudio Castagnoli and Jon Moxley. The controversial opinion that I had, IWGP World Heavyweight title match, Sonata versus Wheeler Yuta, and the main event, big matchup, thumbnail of the video, matchup we're all salivating to see, Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 2. So, like I said, I enjoy doing these fantasy booking videos, and normally, a lot of my cards don't take place, or any of my matches in the cards don't take place. My feelings aren't hurt, It's not my job. They have people there to do it. But it's just some stuff that I like suggesting and like appreciating happening. So, this will definitely be a fun event. Like I said, I'm going to try my best to check out Dominion this weekend as a little bit of a primer, teaser to Forbidden Door. But before that, I should have a new edition of Shooting the Breeze take place tomorrow. And Friday, I will definitely have an ROH TV review unless something happens. I'm going to imagine that it doesn't. But we will see what happens whenever that is. So, thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.